You won't think about it when you go to bed tonight. You're going to turn out the light. You're going to pull the duvet off. You'll fall asleep in a few minutes. But you should know this. Feeling safe in the dark in your room right now is something utterly new in human history. It's so new that your body still doesn't quite believe it. Because for the vast majority of your ancestors, nighttime darkness wasn't just an inconvenience. Nighttime darkness meant death. Do you sometimes experience sudden tremors or startles at night? If your answer is yes, I can tell you that this behavior is one your ancestors instilled in your brain during those days. So what were your ancestors doing during the dark hours of the night? The answer to this question still lives within you, and it changes everything we know about what it means to be human. Before fire was discovered, people had to stop after sunset because moving in the darkness of the night was risky, perhaps even deadly. Leopards saw perfectly in the dark. Hyenas saw. Wolves saw. But humans couldn't see. And this meant only one thing. If you were still outside at sunset, you'd probably become prey for some animal. That's why our ancestors climbed trees. They took refuge in the deepest corners of caves, and they remained silent because making noise meant attracting other predators to them. Then everything changed. The earliest evidence of fire controlled by humanity. It was proven by scientists in Wonderwerk Cave, South Africa, through the discovery of 1 million-year-old burnt bone and ash remains. That small flame evolved into our most powerful weapon over centuries, fundamentally transforming our species. Because a campfire created a safety zone of approximately 9 meters in diameter. If you were within that circle, predators couldn't reach you. If you stepped outside it, you lost your life. This is not an exaggeration. Anthropologists have documented that in Africa, nocturnal hunter-gatherers who move away from fires still face a high risk of attack. But this wasn't the real oddity. Fire was much more than just a shield. Fire gave our ancestors extra time they had never had before. It became their nighttime sun. And when you learn what they were doing during those hours, you will look at the entire course of human history differently. In 2014, an anthropologist spent years working with a community living in the Kalahari Desert that still exists in a way closest to the lifestyle of early humans. She recorded hundreds of conversations, both day and night. She published her results in one of the world's most prestigious scientific journals. And what he found was simple but shocking. During the day, 80% of conversations were practical. Who will hunt where? What food is ready? Who has what rights? Daytime was spent talking about survival. But at night, around the fire, everything changed. 81% of the conversations at night were stories. Tales of distant places. Stories of dead ancestors. Spirits. Ghosts. The beginning of the world. Stories that make you laugh, scare you, make you cry. People were talking about someone they had never seen. Imagining places they had never been. Thinking about things that didn't exist. Think about this. Empathy was learned during these nights. Morality took shape around these fires. The idea of God, the fear of death, love, justice, all of these were put into words for the first time within these circles. The campfire was humanity's first theater, its first school, its first temple, and you feel it. Even today, have you ever asked yourself why you become so talkative, why you feel so relaxed, and why you want to tell stories when sitting around a bonfire? This isn't a coincidence. It's a very old ember burning within you that never goes out. But the events that occurred during those nights were not limited to these. And now, what I'm about to say is something the vast majority of modern people have never heard of. Our ancestors slept on those nights, but not the way you sleep. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night? You looked at the clock. It was 2:30. You tried to go back to sleep, but your mind wouldn't stop. You kept tossing and turning. You thought you'd wake up tired in the morning. Maybe you got anxious. Maybe you had the feeling that something was wrong. Let me tell you something. That feeling is wrong. Historian Roger Ekirch spent 16 years scanning over 500 historical documents, from prayer books of the 1400s to court records, medical texts, ordinary people's diaries, even Homer's Times Odyssea. And he noticed that the same phrase appeared in all of them: the first sleep and the second sleep. Before the Industrial Revolution, people did not sleep in one continuous block at night. They would sleep a few hours after the sun set. They would sleep for 4 hours. Then they would wake up, and they would stay awake for 1 to 2 hours. Then they would sleep again until the morning. This was not a sleep disorder. This was normal. The French called it premier somme. The Italians called it primo sonno. It appears in English ballads. This pattern is found all over the world, from medieval Europe to Native Americans in South America, from Africa to Southeast Asia. Biphasic sleep was a universal human inheritance. So what were they doing at those midnight hours? They were going to the neighbor's house. They were praying. They were interpreting their dreams while they were still fresh in their minds. They were thinking. A doctor's handbook from the 1500s stated, "These are the best hours for working and deep thinking." This window, which they called the lookout, was the moment when the mind was most clear and the world was quietest. For centuries, historians have studied these documents, but in the translations, they changed the expression "first sleep" because they could never imagine that people people could sleep differently. The assumption was so deep-seated that they misinterpreted ancient Greek and medieval Latin to fit their own experiences. Then science stepped in, and it proved in the laboratory what history had said. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr conducted an experiment at the U.S. National Institute of Mental Health. A group of volunteers took part. They completely eliminated artificial light from their lives. For 1 month, they spent 14 hours in darkness every night, exactly the conditions in which our ancestors lived. No one was told anything. No schedule was given. But after 4 weeks, almost all the participants started doing the same thing. They slept for 4 or 5 hours. They woke up, they lay there for an hour or two, then they slept again, spontaneously, without any guidance. Wehr measured their brain chemistry during this period of alertness, and what he found was astonishing. The level of a substance in the participants' brains resembling the hormones secreted during deep meditation had increased. The participants did not describe these hours as clockwork. He described it as a deep state of peace, a state in which the mind flows spontaneously and thoughts become clear. This was not insomnia. It was a state of consciousness in itself, and you have never experienced it. Because in order to experience that state, darkness is necessary, true darkness, and you have never slept in true darkness. So when did this end? In the 1600s, lamps were installed on the streets of Paris. London followed suit. Cheaper candles were introduced, then gas lamps. In 1879, Edison commercialized the electric light bulb, and within a single generation, the night that humanity had known for 300,000 years disappeared. Now, when you look at your phone at 1:1 p.m., your brain perceives the light from that screen as sunlight. Melatonin production stops. The sleep signal is delayed. Your circadian rhythm is disrupted. In other words, you are technically lying to your body every night by saying the sun didn't set. Researchers found something interesting. People who camped for just 1 week without artificial light had their biological clocks advanced by about 2 hours. Their bodies began producing melatonin at sunset. Just 1 week was enough. 7 days for a 300,000-year-old program to be reactivated. We did not change our sleep patterns. We shut down a world within ourselves. Now wait a second. As you read or listen right now, maybe you feel something familiar. Your midnight awakenings. Your mind not stopping while lying in the dark. Those quiet hours when thoughts flow. Maybe this isn't a malfunction. Maybe your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Maybe you're trying to enter the state of consciousness your ancestors were in for thousands of years. And the only thing preventing this is a screen you forgot to turn off. They would gather around the fire and let their voices echo into the darkness. They would tell stories of people they had never seen. They would talk about ghosts and gods. They would laugh, cry, sleep, and wake up. And in that wakefulness, in that narrow window when the world was completely silent, he would only think. The Milky Way was not a decoration in the sky for them. It was just the sky. It was there every night. There was no need to go far to see it. We conquered that darkness. We filled it with light. We thought we were making progress, but we never realized we were losing because the loss happened so slowly, came so suddenly. We never thought to ask what was gone. Now, being awake at 2 a.m. is a disease. Thinking in the dark is a waste of time. Telling stories around the fire is nostalgia. But perhaps what we lost wasn't a habit. Perhaps it was our most human moment. What we turned off with a light switch wasn't just darkness. It was a part of us.